Sahana Vavatu, Sahanao Bhunaktu, Sahaviryang Karavavahai, Tejasvina Vadhitamastu, Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. You may have come to notice that we are in the section of Karma Yoga, Chapter 3, which we have begun last week. And this section opens opportunity for redefining what it means to act. And action is the most familiar facet of our life because out of anything, we've been doing nothing but acting from the very first day of birth. And it stands to reason that it could be helpful for us to take a look into this word action, to redefine it, see where its place is, and if your very action could take on a more graceful role, something that has more divinity imbued in it. So it's not just a mechanical action, something that you have to do, but rather something that you start to see in a much kind of a more holistic way, something that has a greater purpose, that you're not just one little insignificant speck, even though you could say that from one standpoint, if you zoom out on the universe and see Earth and then us. But on the other hand, you do play a big role in this cosmic order. And I will show us, in fact, in coming verses, it will be around verse 18 or 17, you will see that Krishna wants to actually point out your actions affect the entire cosmos. You don't think of it like that, but your actions, what you do, actually influences the entire universe because everything is a cause-effect relationship. And you think that your actions are just small things, but they actually, in the vast picture, they make a huge difference in the entire cosmos, to the sun, to the weather, to the clouds, to the rains, and so you start to see, wow, I just thought my actions are kind of these private little, my hands are moving and my mouth is opening, but every time your hand moves and your mouth opens, you do contribute through the course of time a fair amount of new causes into the universe. So he wants to show us, he will soon enough, how the universe is not this mechanical, static, fixed existence of vacuum and space and air and and species, but rather everything that you do, as especially having capacity of choice, you tremendously influence the vast whole. If you for a moment might imagine a ocean, and one wave, if it crashes in the ocean, the surrounding waves will have some effect. They will be affected, and those affected waves will in turn affect the waves closest to them. So it will, through the course of time, have this vast ripple effect. So Krishna wants to first point out to Arjuna, what purpose does action indeed have in your life? And this started out last week by Arjuna questioning, what is the purpose of action if the only solution to moksha is self-knowledge? I have to remove the clouds. Removal of clouds mean I have to remove the ignorance that's denying you from recognizing what already is true right now. So it's not like the world is a bad place. You just see it that way because of your own clouds. So when you remove those clouds, ultimately you come to see that there is no such thing as imperfection in this world. That is your perception, by the way, that the universe is imperfect. That is your perception. The universe is perfect in every single way. And Krishna wants to lead us, hopefully, so that we can see a little bit more, how is it that this universe and this moment right now, forget about what Krishna is saying back then, right now, everything is as it should be. And we need to see that little by little by this teaching. And that is what you see, that all that is here is Ishvara. There's no such thing as these forms that you're attributing. They're a manifestation of this one order that is going through and that is manifesting and unmanifesting constantly. Manifesting as your body right now, who may be smiling or listening and hearing these manifested words, and there's a manifested meaning taking place because of these manifested words coming inside your manifested brain, and your manifested brain is working out manifested thoughts, and those manifested thoughts have a manifested meaning, and that manifested meaning produces a manifested chemical reaction in the body, which then produces a manifested sensation. And then a manifested curiosity comes up and says, okay, Andre, we get the point. Now manifest it, continue, please. And so Krishna points to Arjuna that see, action and knowledge, they both have a place in this order. Arjuna wants to know, how do you reconcile this? Because on one hand, in chapter 2, you said that self-knowledge alone removes those clouds of ignorance, and I can see what is. But now you're saying, go and participate in this Kurukshetra, this battlefield of life. So how this doesn't make sense. On one hand, you say, pursue knowledge, leave everything else alone. On the other hand, go and attend to life duties. And Krishna explicitly points out that both have a purpose. If you are qualified, if your mind is clean enough and it's qualified and it's removed those clouds through life experience, and you're a relatively rational person, then for you jnana yoga would be sufficient. And he calls this in verse 3, chapter 3, calls it Sankhyanam. That means jnana yoga is for the renunciates. So now when he says renunciates, here can also mean for those who are decently qualified. Their mind is already mature. They have their perspectives in order. They have undone their emotional complications. They have simplified their dramas in life. They have attended to their to their basic needs in life. They're relatively satisfied about their surroundings. They have come to a point of inquiring about things, about existence, about themselves and the world, and they are enjoying their existence as a person. That person, I tell you, they walk into a class with self-knowledge, it will be clicking like this. Wow, I get it, I get it, I get it. Existence, awareness, Brahman, I get it. Ishvara, connections, I get it, I get it. They will get it. And you're sitting there, or we're sitting there next to him. It's like, what's going on? Are you in some kind of a state? And they're just getting it. But you're saying this is not what my experience is. It's going over my head. And the reason is because you are still, or not necessarily you, but the person sitting there is still carrying those clouds, which are filtering the information once it enters the mind. And when it gets filtered, it simply makes it unrelatable. You relate to what it's saying. It sounds really good, and you're enjoying the talk. It's all wonderful, but it doesn't have this sticking power. It doesn't have this carry and run with it, carry and integrate it deeply power. And for that reason, karma yoga comes to help the person. So karma yoga then says it is for whom? It is for active practitioners, says Krishna in chapter 3, verse 3. For whom is jnana yoga, self-knowledge? For those renunciates with a qualified mind. For whom is karma yoga? For those who are active participants in life. That means you're busy in life, that you didn't have the time to just keep on cleaning up your mind, to keep on meditating, to keep on engaging in spiritual talks, to keep on, right? You've got children, you've got obligations, you've got work. So you simply didn't have the time to get your act together, unlike the jnana yoga person. So now Krishna is talking to those types. And who is Arjuna? Is he the jnana yogin, or is he the the karma yogin? Now suppose you say karma yogin. Why is he a karma yogin? What can you infer? What makes you know that Arjuna is a karma yogin, that he's an active participant in life?
Because he didn't get it straight away.
Indeed.
Quite understand.
Yeah, good. So otherwise he would have stopped asking and just done what needs to be done. What else tells you that he is a karma yogin?
He has a family life, like he has a wife and brothers. So he's actively participating in a social life, and along with that, he's a king. So all of that states so.
You can tell that he's not ready. His mind isn't purified. He's not really ready to go to the advanced level because look how he reacts to adverse things in his life. I mean, he's crying. He just wants to give up. He's puzzled by what to do with his, relatives. He's having mental problems, and
Yeah.
so he needs to work out what's moral and immoral before he goes any further.
That's very good, Carrie. And just to bring what Carrie's saying, let's make this more to us. You see, you have to put yourself in Arjuna, if you were to, for a moment, in his position as a her or a him, and you have someone that's close to you, and that you love them, right? You care for them, and they just happen to be on a side where you see them going, in a not fair direction. It's not an educated direction. And you just cannot kind of do anything about it, right? You try to help them out, but they're just going towards this direction that you know how it's going to turn out based on your clarity. And they happen to do something that is just not fair. It's illegal or something that's destructive. And on one hand, you're torn. On one hand, you have this love for them naturally, but on the other hand, your inner conscience is telling you, I have to, report this. I have to do what is to be done. Do you think that's going to be easy for most of us? It's not going to be easy, you see? So think about where Arjuna is. It's not easy. It's easy to talk about this, but in real life, you're going to have that little inner tearing, one side over the other side. So this is where Arjuna is. And most people are in this same situation. It may not be that extreme, but on small areas, it may be like that. Okay, so good. So we're relating where Arjuna is now. Okay. So for this reason, Krishna wants to tell him it's not so black or white. In fact, if anyone ever puts you in a black or white position and says, hey, Tina, is it like this or is it like that? And then Tina's going, oh, I have to now respond to him. Stop. Because the person is putting you into a corner. They're saying it's either like this or it's like that. But how many grays of shade are there in between? There are so many. So instead, Krishna doesn't fall for this being cornered into a place and says, oh, well, either this is better than this. He says, no, both have a place. Karma yoga is to purify your mind, to clean up get your act together, to mature you up for spiritual growth, and from which you can start to, just connect and find jnana yoga more relevant, more interesting, more, something that you just want to drink like nectar. You want to drink the whole, Vedic wisdom. And so he changes that perspective. It's not black or white. So both have a place. He also says, finally in verse 5, and then we will continue, he basically said, instead of looking at it from this black or white perspective of I either do or I don't do. Okay, that's black or white. Instead, he says, no, there's no question of non-doing, because even non-doing is going to cause you to observe a result, and then you're going to have to kind of do something about that result to sustain, your well-being. So you're always essentially doing. So Krishna says that instead of thinking to do or not to do, rather say, is my action aligned with the harmony of my own self-interest and the harmony of the other? Or is it aligned with just my self-interest? Okay, so is it either helping me in protecting my self-interest, but also protecting the other? That means including the other in their well-being, or is it only including me at the expense or ignoring the other side? That is the question to be asked. So let's ask this question. When you do an action, what is your attitude towards that action? Is it, let me do it or let me not do it? Or what action needs to come through, either through my voice or gestures or whatever it is, what action needs to come through from this instrument to protect my self-interest, whatever those self-interests are for you, but also to include the well-being of the other person. That's the question that needs to envelop every action that comes through out of you. And from this thread, Krishna now continues in verse 6, and he will say more. Okay, verse 6. Karmendriya nisanyamya ya aste manasa smaran indriyartham vimudhatma mityacharasa uchyate.
The one who, controlling the organs of action, sits with the mind, remembering those sense objects, is deluded and is called a person of false conduct.
Suppose that Arjuna goes to the mountains and he follows his so-called, inner guidance that we call it. It's not really inner guidance, is it? It's just running away in this case. So he goes to the mountains and he starts to contemplate on this knowledge, right? You're contemplating about the existence of life. And what do you think, putting yourself in his position, what will your mind instead start to contemplate about? Now that you're in the mountains, you found your hut, you found your place, you found your quiet place in the world. No one's bothering you. It's all provided. Food is there. What are you instead contemplating about now? Having just left the arena of life.
You will still contemplate about life. There's no running away from the thought.
Yeah, you ran away from life to contemplate about the life you ran away from. What else would you contemplate about?
He would contemplate, why did he give up the fight? He always had an option to fight. Why did he give up that option?
Yeah.
He will be self-condemning for most of the time.
He would realize that all these years, 12 years of waiting, he had prepared for this fight. He knew that he was in the side of the dharma. He had even taken, Vidya from Bhagwan Shiv and got all those astras around. And all those people looking at whom his mind was, weakening, he had already beaten them once in another war, Virat Yudh.
Yeah.
So why is he now becoming so weak?
Yeah. This is a good point, Gautam. Imagine you prepare yourself. Suppose you have a speech coming up. Anyone here likes to speak, public speaking? Like public speaking? No, okay. Well, suppose you have to give a speech because you're the best person who can do that. And, you're speaking to the kids. Was that okay now that you're speaking to kids? Do you like public speaking now? Funny how it changes. No? Okay. So how old does a child have to be for you to love to speak in front of kids? What about 1 year old? 3 years old? Okay. So that's your area of comfort. So start with 3-year-olds. See? So there's no need for pressure. Okay, so suppose 3-year-olds, you have to give them a speech and, something's very simple. And you get your weapons, you get your, I don't know why you would get weapons though, but you prepare yourself and you wear the right clothes and you got the jokes. And now it's your turn to go. And suddenly you're sweating and your heart is pumping and thumping so loudly and you start to get so warm and start to take all your clothes off, sweating and like Niagara Falls, armpits sweating, and suddenly you can't do it. I say, what's the matter? You need to go and talk to them. You've been preparing for 5 days. No, I can't do it. I can't do it. And you check out and then you go home. How would you feel about yourself now? A lot worse than if you found the courage, as uncomfortable as it was, to go and engage. Isn't that true? So it's a lot easier to do something that's uncomfortable than to experience the regret of not doing it. That regret becomes a lot more painful. And therefore, Arjuna would experience this and it would not be an easy journey for him. So this means that, he would kind of carry this resentment and unresolved issues like Gautam said, okay? So this means that the first thing is that you have to ask yourself, is it worth it? Is the regret worth the escape? And if not, then that can help you make the right decisions, okay? And there's a nice story of this. to illustrate. It's called The Story of the Two Monks. And they both became monks recently, and they were walking through a forest together. And there was a river that they had to cross, but there was also a woman who happened to be there, wanted to cross the riverbank. So she spotted them, and she asked, the first monk agreed, and he decided to put her on his shoulder and carry her over. And the second monk followed behind, and he dropped her off, and the two monks continued their way. So nice is easy. But then 1 hour later, the second monk, he snapped. He said, you know, how could you do that? We're both monks. We're both celibate. We don't touch women. You know, how could you do that? We made a vow. And so he was not a happy camper. Now, the first monk replied and says, hey, I did what I needed to do. I picked up the woman she needed to be taken to the other side, and I did. I did what I needed to do, and I carried her for 10 seconds. I dropped her off, and we went our way. You, not only have you not done what needed to be done, but how long have you been carrying her? For 1 hour. What's the difference? Whether I carried her physically or mentally, you're still being carrying her mentally. Why? Because you couldn't get yourself to do what needed to be done. And therefore, it shows you that there's a certain responsibility that you are called of. And if that responsibility you reject, you can get away with it, but there is a consequence. There's a feedback system that will let you know whether you've really done the right thing. And so when we carry these notions of resentment and all these unresolved stories about certain people and situations that have hurt and have stung like a bee, then it prevents you from speaking wisely. You may speak wisely, but there's a certain inner guilt that I'm saying one thing, but I'm not really feeling life to be coming from the very place that I'm speaking from. So there's an incongruence. So when one's carrying these loopholes, there are these unblocked these holes, then it just denies you from not only feeling congruent about yourself, but also it's very hard to speak wisdom. When you open your mouth, it just doesn't come out. And you say, why is this? I know this mentally. I know wisdom mentally, but when my mouth opens, it doesn't seem to coherently come together. The words are off. And the reason is because there are still those inner holes that have to be plugged in. So the first thing that Arjuna has to do is ask him or herself, who are those characters on the screen of my mind that keep reappearing, which when they do, it is not comfortable, or it tends to throw me off my game. It throws me off my center. It tends to deny me from recognizing my connection to the order. Who are those characters? If one might ask, what kind of a character would that be? What would they look like? From what time in one's life? And what exactly, this is a second inquiry, what exactly about this character or this situation is specifically triggering? It's not the whole thing. It's not like it's their hair that's triggering you or the clothes they're wearing, but what specifically is the trigger about this situational person? Is it the words? And what specific words were said, in what order and in what tone, that is causing that trigger of discomfort in you? If one might ask this, what would your mind come up with, I wonder? And the question is, could you afford to hold such characters for the next 5 years? Would that be fair upon yourself? If the answer is no, then what might you do about it? And in what way could you, in your way, get an eraser? What will your eraser be? What would that eraser look like? What would that eraser sound like? You see? So we're not telling you what to do, just your own way. You have your own ways of solving or diffusing these emotionally charged situations that that pop up on the screen of your mind. So is it fair to, is it beneficial for you to be free of such stings from your life? Could it be? In what way could you enjoy life more if you were to release yourself from such stings that are in your memory? In what way could you find a way to move forward and maybe even realize that you too played a part, that maybe you were also passive aggressive? Maybe that could help by realizing that, no, it's not just them who have hurt me. I've also played a part in hurting them. I was equally partial in my view, and I was equally biased in what is the quote right thing to be done. I too have contributed in some way, because after all, nobody knows everything. So how could you say that you were the right one? Absolutely, and the other was the wrong one. So it makes us curious, how much deeper could we explore this area of today or this week, finding ways, even through a prayer, to collapse or reduce the intensity of these emotionally charged situations that may be holding you back? In what ways could you explore that? That's the weekly homework. So in verse 7 now, speaking of this action, the question now comes then, what has happened, but what about present actions, actions of today? In what way could you imbue your actions with more joy, let's say? And this will be in verse 7. Before we go to verse 7, what does the monk story illustrate for you?
I think just being too attached to your actions or to your thoughts, rather than just dropping something.
How do you become what does it mean to be too attached to something?
If you can't drop it.
And what makes you can't drop it? What specifically makes you unable to drop it?
So for me, it illustrates that to be non-judgmental of other people's action and just be accepting of things around you, because we do not know the complete story of everyone.
Yeah,
just be non-judgmental.
What is the cause of negative thinking?
It's the comparison with others.
Comparison, that is certainly one of the most common ones, and immediate. If you ever want to immediately have negative thinking, what do? You just start to find something that is shinier, more rounded, curvier, silkier, smoother, softer, polished. Done. Anything else? What is the common cause of negative thinking, Pankaj?
To my mind, it is selfishness. At the root of all the problems is your personal. You look at your own self, your own ego. I mean, your self, not in the meaning of higher reality, but as a body, mind, intellect combination. Your personal happiness, your personal growth, how you view the world, your own perspectives, they are the fundamental cause of negativity in the world.
So what I'm hearing is that negative thinking can also be a narrow-minded view of looking at things. So it becomes a very, as you say, selfish, very one-way way of looking at things, whereas all these other ways are equally available. And so we're just choosing one little fruit from the tree.
When the other person's thinking is not in line with your opinion.
Now, verse 7 will talk about two approaches to looking at action. One of them potentially leads to negative thinking, and the second uplifts you. So let's see what verse 7 says. Yastvindriyani manasa niyamya rabhate arjuna karmendriyai karma yogam asakta savishishyate.
Whereas, Arjuna, the one who controlling the sense organs with the mind, remaining unattached, takes to the yoga of action, i.e. action performed with yoga buddhi, with the organs of action is far superior.
Thank you. Now, this verse basically wants to show us two modes of doing actions. And I think it's worthy of putting it in a chart to ensure that it's crystal clear where and how your actions affect the quality of your life. Would that be helpful? I think so. All right. So I'll do it on a whiteboard. Classic old school. I know we can do whiteboard on Zoom, but I prefer classic style. Okay. So I'm going to change the microphone. Yeah. Test, test, test. So all we're doing now, you can hear, yes? Okay. As close as possible. Okay, all we're doing now is going to create a table and see what Krishna says according to this verse, how he individuates ordinary karma from karma yoga. So we're going to put karmi. Is that on the board? You can see? Okay. And karma yogi. Okay, so you want to go from here to here. That's the idea. So let's see first how a karmi, that means one who takes action as action, and there's nothing beyond action, just do it for the sake of action. How they look at, for example, motivation. So we'll go number one, motivation. What motivates a karmi into acting, an ordinary person into acting? Personal likes or dislikes. Is that fair to say? So what is it that motivates people in life to do, to travel, to do things, to work, and so on? It's, I like this, therefore I will do action to get it, right? Okay. What about a karma yogi? What motivates a karma yogi to perform actions in the world?
That's his duty.
Duty.
Duty, okay. Number one, duty. What else? There's several more.
Service to others?
Service to others. We'll put service duties.
Service.
Service. Antakarana shuddhi. Okay, so mind purification. That's the main one, by the way.
You mean he does it with the purified mind, or the action gives him purified mind?
What motivates your actions? So you've transferred yourself from doing actions because it pleases me alone into why are you now motivated as a karma yogi to act, to participate, to do duty? Because it provides certain maturity, certain mind purity, a certain level that you can see things clearly and more coherently, right? More harmoniously. And what else is karma yoga motivation for? Main one? Moksha.
No attachment.
Moksha.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, moksha. So mainly it's antakarana shuddhi, and moksha is why a karma yogi does what they do. Purpose. Why does an ordinary person do what they do?
Self-gratification.
Sense gratification is good.
Self-gratification.
Yes. Personal fancies, maybe desirable outcomes. Now, is there anything wrong with that? Desirable outcomes? No. Even if you're a karma yogi, you still want desirable outcomes. Why does a teacher teach? Because they want an undesirable student? No, they want desirable class. So there's nothing wrong with anything. We're just looking at the comparison. What about purpose in karma yoga?
Moksha.
Moksha, which we have, we would say...
And mind purification. I think that would be the purpose, actually.
Yeah, you could say that too. Okay, so how about shake up unhealthy desires? So in other words, shake up those likes and dislikes that are not very healthy, that are making you always think in one direction and not consider alternatives. These are all undesirable behaviors. So you want to shake that up. You want to create more flexibility, more space to think, think more holistically. What about mind and senses, sense gratification?
That would be unconscious mind.
That could be unconscious. Yeah.
person.
Yeah. So that's coming from, your unconscious. So if it's coming from the unconscious, what does this imply then? If it's sense gratification, that means absence of past work. That's why it's coming from the unconscious. So we could say that lack of
Awareness.
I'll say viveka. Conversely, on this side, how does a karma yogi use their mind and senses?
They will have viveka.
They will have
consciousness.
Viveka, mindful.
And somewhere along, maybe we should add like renunciation.
Yeah. Okay,
I don't know if it's
right.
this or
Vairagya with Viveka.
passion or
Right. I would actually say dispassion or renunciation or objectivity. That's what my teacher says. That's my word, objectivity. That means you don't see things more than they deserve to be seen. If I see gold, it's malleable, it's yellow, and it's rare. It's not a status symbol. It's not a symbol to be shown off. So you see things as they are. All right. What about nature of action? I know it's repeating, but it gets our mind rolling. Nature of action. How about avoid loss and maximize gains? What about nature of action for a karma yogi?
Selfless action.
Selfless action, okay. So what does selfless mean? Because it's a little bit of a vague word, selfless action.
for lokakshemam.
It benefits a larger community.
Okay, what about offering as an offering to Ishvara? How does a karmi look at worldview?
If you do good deeds, you'll get good results.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's sort of I'll go to heaven or something like that.
Good deeds equals heaven. That means future or present plus. That means pleasant results. Okay. So yeah, it's sort of this personal thing, right? I want to benefit. Now, what about worldview for a karma yogi? There was one nice word we used some time ago, enlightened self-interest. So if this is very personal, then remember how we said you always do everything for your own self. You never do anything for anyone else. You always do it because it pleases you to do it. It pleases you to love someone else. So you could say it is self-interest, but what kind of a self-interest? It is an enlightened self-interest.
Believing in oneness.
Enlightened, I'll put that aside, self-interest. So why do you have this oneness understanding? Because you're never outside the order. Okay, no wave is outside the ocean. So yes, the wave still does for its own, for the good of its own self, but it also knows it's interconnected with other waves. Therefore, it's interconnected, which is oneness. Therefore, it comes from it considers the well-being of both. What's the outcome of all of going about life in this, according to this side outcome?
Security.
Long-term satisfaction or short-term satisfaction? Yeah, fleeting. So fleeting. It's still nice. There's no worse or better. It's just what it is. It's fleeting. And what about outcome? Karma yoga. Definitely.
I want to say that the difference is in karmi, it is initial pleasure, subsequent pain. In karma yoga, it is initial pain, subsequent pleasure.
Super. Yeah, very good, Pankaj. So initial pain, initial pain. It says delayed gratification, and then subsequent pleasure. But ultimately, the outcome is a clean mind, a healthy orientation, emotional satisfaction, a healthy sense of independence, able to relate with people, lack of isolation, and moksha. So we'll say absence of isolation.
And also like being a true instrument of the Lord.
And being an instrument, yeah. So you're able to not kind of put your own spin onto things. You just, let yourself instrument. You let yourself do what has to be done. This is what verse wants to show you. And it wants to show you that karma yoga, it's not just an action, it's an attitude, how you look at your actions. And thereby you can not change anything about what you do, just see that your actions are an offering to Ishvara. They're not just done for to maximize my gains or to avoid the losses. What will those actions of a karma yogi give you? And like, what is your view? I am doing it for myself, but I'm also doing it because I want to reach out and contribute to the larger whole. What about your discrimination? You are mindful of your actions. What consequences will it lead to? You're awareful of, your speaking, what words are coming out. How will this, will this bring more peace to both of us, or will it cause us to separate? And you have moved away from likes and dislikes. That means all about my satisfaction. Rather, you see that every action is a gift if you choose to look at it that way, because it brings you a certain new worldview about yourself and about what's possible. Therefore, you can bring yourself closer to Ishvara by turning to karma yoga.
The first point, I feel the basic motivation or impulsion for a karma yogi is just to do the karma that is required. There cannot be a motivation, external motivation. Even moksha and mind purification is an external motivation. So if it is motivated to do for the sake of moksha or mind purification, then he's not really a karma yogi.
Good. Okay. So certainly there is an initial, when you transfer, when you hear about karma yoga, now you start to think about, the much higher benefits that if I start to no longer look at it, that it's just for me and it's not for anyone else. So initially it starts as a motivation, but like anything, you find the love of contributing the best that you can. You love your actions become not a means of, oh, I'm doing this to get future results. I'm doing this because I love to do this. So notice how karma yoga, it says one of these we could put renunciation. Where was it? Renunciation of results. Now, wherever it is. Now, is renunciation of results something that you choose? Is Krishna telling you should renounce the results, Lorena?
I think as you, when the information, when you start to understand the self, you start to look at identification, and then you see the superficial nature of that, the adhyasa, the superimposition of it. Mm-hmm. And then it's naturally that vairagya takes place. It's because you realize you don't need all these things to be fulfilled.
Excellent. Okay. So okay, sure. Let's make this even more personal. Did you ever have a time where you love to do something, whatever it is? It doesn't have to be grandiose. You love to knit, you love to engage, you have a talent for working with a certain craft, people, art, IT, money, or whatever it is. You just enjoy being in your place. Is there a question for you about, I'm doing this to get something? It's totally not there. So when Krishna says karma yogi renounces this insistence of how things need to look like, it's not like he's saying, okay, this is what you should do. He's just saying the byproduct of offering your actions to the altar of Ishvara, the byproduct of loving what you do according to your natural, inborn, innate talents that everyone comes with. The byproduct of that is you are focused on your work and you love that. The work itself becomes the joy. The journey is the happiness. And when journey is the happiness, where's the question of arrival? Therefore, in that sense, Krishna keeps on saying this. The karma yogi renounces results, renounces results. Like, what is this renounces results? I can't do this. It's not even a question of renouncing results. It's the question, what he's saying is it doesn't even arise in your mind. And then he follows up in a verse and he says, the karma yoga path is vishishyate, superior to, last verse, which he calls mityachara, to a hypocrite. Now, what is a hypocrite? The one who renounces the world, puts on clothes of renunciation, goes away, but what they have not renounced? They have not renounced the world. They only renounced clothing and physical possessions. They're still carrying the mind. So that's a hypocrite. That's a mityachara in the last verse. So it's much better to be in this world and carry yourself like a man or woman who has service to provide and do your duty according to the karma yoga spirit than to renounce the world, but inside I'm still carrying Kurukshetra in my mind.
Hi, Andre. I just wanted to clarify my understanding of karmi versus karma yogi. So in my head, if a karmi does an action, or whether a karma yogi does an action, both actions objectively will produce an external effect.
Correct.
So it's not like the karma yogi is escaping the external consequence of the action that they've taken. The only difference is their intention is different. So the karmi is maybe slapping someone because how dare you offended me.
Okay.
But the karma yogi is like, I need to slap you because you did the wrong thing and it's for the higher good. So it's the same action, but the intention is different. And is that why the karma yogi is then not taking on karma? Is that have I understood that correctly?
Correct. Because if you just slap because it's coming from an impulse, and every time he does, it's reinforcing that impulse. That means I'm this impulsive person who cannot hold myself back. But whereas if I'm doing it and I bring a thought into it, this has to be done because it is the right thing to do right now, then you're not only applying an action and solving the issue, if it's a slap for whatever reason, right? Maybe a child needs a little spank or something, but also you're deliberately training yourself to be thoughtful, to be mindful, and to know that there is a larger order, a cause-effect order here, because no action goes without a reaction. So the question is, if I stop myself, will this lead to papam? And how much punyam will it lead to? Is this healthy for me? Is this healthy for us? And where is this, bound to head eventually? So it makes you very mindful about your existence and your connections in reference to those objects which you are acting towards.
So the consequence of that slap would no longer affect you. I think that's where I'm getting stuck.
Yeah.
There's still an effect.
Got it. So it would not affect you definitely in a way that the impulsive slap would have affected you, because you came from a place of thoughtfulness before you applied your action. So this is very important. So this means that suppose you you think about it first and you really assess, where are you coming from? Is it healthy? Is it selfish? Is it my own personal narratives? Is it my childhood injuries that are causing me to want to act? Or is there a place where I've thought through well enough that this action is warranted? This action is now warranted. You think, and only then you apply the action. Okay. Now, suppose the other person doesn't favorably respond to you. Can you now take it like, oh, I should have thought about it. Oh, I feel guilty. I'm so sorry. I was impulsive. I didn't, I was acting from a selfish place. Can you now do that? No,
because you considered all. Yeah. Okay.
So not only have you now protected yourself, but also you've done your homework. And when you do your homework, then you put out an action. And if that action is not well received, it's not like, oh, I now have to take on my punya papam. No, I've came from a place of clarity, right?
Okay.
If you don't see that, then maybe we need to kind of, take some time away and reassess.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. I'll let that marinate in my mind a bit.
Why transfer from here to here? if both of them get the exact same result, empirically, the same result, you went to work, you got your paycheck, both of them are actions. Why should I add one more word, yoga here?
Because the actions, the motivation for the actions are different. But the consequence of the action will be there unless you are a jnani and you are not having a kartritva bhav, then only there will be no effect. So unless you are a jnani and having a kartritva or a bhoktritva bhav, there will be a result. But in this case, the result will be better and more positive as compared to anybody who's just a karmi.
Sure. So right now we're not on, on non-dual akarta bhokta. We are still a karta bhokta, right, at the karma yoga level.
Okay.
However, we are at the point of turning an ordinary action into something that brings the presence of divinity in your life. Because we're so used to just acting out and then just leaving it at that. But what do you miss out on? You miss out on divinity. You miss out on something much deeper that's always confronting you, always available, and always protecting you at every moment. So karma yoga helps you to bring the presence of this divinity in your life throughout your actions. And we will see exactly how karma yoga does that in the coming verse. Correct?
Yeah, the karma yogi is after wanting to develop a sattvic mind, right?
Beautiful.
So they can do self-inquiry.
Now, who doesn't want a peaceful, composed, joyful, discerning mind of depth and reason? Who doesn't want that? That's karma yoga. Okay, it trains you to be more mindful of your actions, and not just mindful, because that's called mindfulness, but mindful of the presence of Ishvara. All right, verse 8. How is karma yoga action superior to inaction or ordinary action? Verse 8. Niyatam kuru karma tvam karma jayo hyak karmanaha sharira yatra pichate na prasidhyed akarmanaha.
Do action that is to be done, because action is superior to inaction. Even the maintenance of your body would be impossible by inaction.
Before I go into the verse, a little introduction. You see, this verse talks about action, but what precedes action? Thought. Okay. So this means that every thought that comes or appears, it always comes enveloped in three voices. And depending on how many of these you apply, depends on how much free will you really have. And what are those three voices that every thought is nicely wrapped with? They are: first, thought comes, do something with me, leave me alone, do something different with me. For example, thought comes out of nowhere, just like that. It pops up. What is the first thought saying? Suppose it's the first thought. It's never a first, is it? But suppose it's the first thought. It says, okay, Vijay, do something with me. So now Vijay can say, okay, I will follow through this thought, through my speech or my action. And then once Vijay does something, what happens? Vijay from that moment becomes accountable. So accountability only starts when you choose one of those voices. Do something with me. Now, once you become accountable, that's when you start to gain merit or demerit, your punya papam. That means the consequences will be facing you in the near future. That's the first thought. Do something with me, please. Okay. Act out. Second, leave me alone. Third, that means don't do anything with it. Just let it pass. It's just a thought, like any other, like all of the billions of thoughts you've had. Has no substance, has no flavor, has no importance, or maybe does. Third one, do something different with me, please. We call this pratipaksha bhavana. That means I have a thought, and now that it's this particular type of thought, let me look at it totally differently. It's my cue to change around the entire perspective. Thought about it like this, about this fella or person. Now I will see the positive qualities in them. I will see things that inspire me. So you went from things that don't inspire you, that I hate about them, that this and that, to things that actually I admire about them. You went totally opposite. Now, how many of these three voices do we go for? Do something with me. That means entertain me all day, all life. That's usually the first choice. Leave me alone, or do something different with me. What is your statistical answer to this?
I think the first option normally.
First two.
First two. So what's the second one? Don't do anything?
Leave me alone.
Leave me alone. In fact, that's true. It said that you have 60,000+ thoughts per day. How many of those do you actually entertain? Few, maybe a couple of dozens.
Sometimes I don't know what to do with the thought,
right?
Because I don't know the actions, or I'm still contemplating about the actions. So I leave it alone.
So do something with me, don't do anything with me, or leave me alone. Okay. So suppose we go to the first one. How much of your free will do you really have? We will say 1/3 of your free will. So whenever you hear this whole discussion about free will discussion, we have free will, don't have free will, you got to ask the person, how many of these three do you really do? Because if you're only first one, do something with me, entertain me, think about me, inquire into me, get to the bottom of me, investigate me. It's a sign that something has to be done. Go and write it out. Always doing something with the thoughts. Then it seems like I don't have much free will, because I'm always bound to doing something with my thoughts. And thus the discussion starts, we don't have free will. Whereas you have two more options. You can leave the thought alone, but we're just not trained to do that. That's why we don't usually opt in. And we can do something totally opposite. And usually we don't do that either, because you don't get taught that. But either way, all three leads to making you accountable. So what does it mean to be an accountable, responsible person? That means you chose, you exercised your faculty of choice in reference to these three voices. From then on, you become accountable. When you do become accountable, how do you know whether your choice was the right one? That's when life is the only solution to tell you that. Life itself will let you know how keeping in harmony with the rest was your decision. What kind of responses have you gotten? What has your response really taught you? Has it brought more openness in your life? Has it closed you down? Has it hurt you? Has it hurt another person? So life itself from that moment on becomes your feedback system. That's the only way that you know. Now, hopefully you were conscious enough. This is what Amrita was talking about. The more conscious you are of your decisions, mindful, the more you're able to trace back. This consequence has led to this decision. So now you can say this decision thus needs refinement. That's the power of karma yoga. If I don't have that mindfulness, just lash out, then whatever action you put into the field, you're unable to trace it back to the original cause. And therefore, what happens? Next time, again, constantly at the mercy of an unfavorable result. Please.
The third option, where you want to do something different, because maybe over time you have realized that, okay, always just following your impulsive nature and doing something is not good. But you face a lot of resistance, or maybe others feel that's not the right thing. Meaning, because you are surrounded by people who would do the first option, possibly, right? So when you want to exercise your third voice, listen to it and do something different, a lot of resistance is faced, isn't it? Do you?
By you or by those around you?
A system and people around.
Yeah. So this is, and that's your personal situation that you're in. That becomes now, as I was going to talk about, your swadharma. You're put in a unique situation with the people that you're with, in the situations in your country, with your language, with your culture. And that also becomes another layer that you have to navigate in the light of those three voices that your thought is constantly, that you're making a choice with. So you're making your own personal choices, do something, not do something, do something different. But then society also has their own voices No, you said I do something different. Society says don't do anything. Another one in your family says, no, do something with it. So now you have to navigate all of that at the same time and conclude which choice ultimately, according to your viveka, would make most sense.
Just to answer Vijay, I think the conversation we had, I think one of the chapters, a wise man, what is day for him is like night for the common man, or things like that. So we could use that as well.
Very good example.
Thank you.
Yeah. So if you see clearly, then you do have the right to override somebody else's decision, because ultimately you do come with your own permission slip to say yes to what you want to pursue in life. So we don't always need a permission slip from others. And it takes courage to do that. Asha?
So you can you repeat that sentence that you just said? To be accountable means you exercise?
To be accountable, to what makes you accountable, responsible, means you have exercised your faculty of choice in reference to your thought. So your thought has come, now you have to exercise your choice, and then you become accountable.
Okay.
That means thought, faculty of choice, accountable. One little mind twister. Can you be accountable for thoughts that haven't yet come? No. You only become accountable once your unmanifest thought manifests. That means right now you got all sorts of thoughts, but I don't know what they are. That's why I can only say all sorts of thoughts. I don't know which ones. Only when they come, then you become accountable. That means every thought is wrapped with free will. That's
Andre, one.
Yes, Gautam.
You might just be responsible for a thought that has not occurred because it will occur because of the vasanas. So if there is a vasana which is very conditioned, so you are going to be accountable for the thoughts that have not yet occurred. They are likely to occur because of the ingrained vasana.
Yeah, but you can still, with your discretion and a certain amount of willpower, you can certainly put a brake on that intensity of how much you want to exercise that thought. So you see, of course, Gautam, you always have these impressions pouring out of the, of your causal body, but there's a certain break, there's a certain gateway that you're still the guard, you're still the bodyguard, and you say, no, I'm not going to let you into my house, Mr. Thought, Mr. Tempting Thought, stay out of my house. To this thought, I can say yes to, and it takes courage and strength to come to that place. And so, of course, you have thoughts coming all the time, but you also have endowment of choice. That's something that animals don't have. That's why you're a manushya. Manushya means a thinking being. So having introduced how thoughts come, now the verse states that Krishna says action is non-negotiable. Why? Your survival demands action. There was a Swami who said, I'm not a doer, I do no actions. I'm a total akarta here. And he wanted to be fed by other people because he didn't have to use his hands. He's not a doer. So people fed him and he was swallowing the food, nom, 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 and swallows. And someone says, Swami, you're still acting by chewing and you're acting by swallowing. And that's when Swami realized that the whole thing of inaction is a myth. You're always acting, whether you like it or not. Now, knowing that action is non-negotiable, you're always acting, Krishna calls this non-negotiable action niyatam karma. That's the first word in the verse. Niyatam karma. That which is to be done. What is to be done? And there are three kinds of niyatam karmas. The first one is those which are indispensable. They are crucial for your survival. So first one is for your survival. Brushing your teeth, taking care of your body, taking care of your mind, breathing, going to sleep. They're all crucial and they become most natural to us. First. Second is, now that you are doing those things to survive, you also come born with a certain innate talent, skills, and unique position in life. You're born to certain parents in a certain family with certain situations, and you're given certain privileges in life. Those privileges have to be exercised outwards, because in Ishvara's creation, as we've noticed, nothing is useless. Not one thing in nature is just consuming for itself. Like a bee takes nectar, so the bee needs a flower, but the flower needs the bee to have other flowers pollinated. So in that same way, your own unique position, it's called swadharma, you have a place in this world that by your existence, the world benefits. The question is, how does this world benefit by your existence in it? And not just kind of talent, one talent, but in every situation. For example, your roles that you play at work, how does that environment benefit? Then when you come and have your roles at home, how does that home now benefit from your role? And then when you go to your friends, how do your friends benefit from your roles? And then when you go and have a nice time with your spouse, how does your spouse benefit from your roles? That is your swadharma. What light, what flowering, what fragrance do you bring to the world by your existence? That is your swadharma. That's the second kind of niyatam karma. And the third one is those actions which are not pleasant at the start, they don't bring instant gratification, but in the long run, they make you more composed, peaceful, at one with yourself, more integrated. Those are the three types of niyatam karma. Those things that are to be done. Notice all three: survival, second is swadharma, and third, self-growth. All three are equally as important as survival. That's what Krishna says, followed by karma jyayo hyakarmanaha. Action, he says finally. What kind of action? Niyatam karma is superior to inaction. Why? Well, for instance, if you don't act, do you accomplish anything? No. So there's so much potential to accomplish. If I don't act, nothing gets done. We stay exactly the same. Now, in the Vedas, how many Purusharthas are there? 4. Do any of them, is there a fifth one which says inaction, do nothing? Even kama, entertainments and luxuries and good stuff of life, even that is only a response to giving yourself a break from artha, security. Even kama is not a break. Kama is just a response to giving yourself free time, a little bit of a break in response to your artha, security in life, which is always enveloped by dharma. And moksha certainly is not a walk in a park. It requires a certain commitment, dedication. Which worthwhile goal does not require dedication from you? Worthwhile, not one. Every great goal in life, every great achievement is done with commitment, dedication, persistence, hard work, sincerity, and vulnerability even sometimes. To even acknowledge, I need help, I want to better this, tired of pretending like everything's okay, want to solve this once and for all. And next week, we will talk about a very interesting idea called yajna. Some people say yajna, yajna. How yajna helps you convert your intellectual understanding of oneness and interconnectedness into a physical expression. I'll give you a little bit of a hook. Suppose you have someone in your life, and then we'll close, that you love dearly, and they're next to you, wherever they are. And in your mind, you keep on saying, oh, I love this person. I really love them. I love them. I totally love them. But you never verbalize this love for the person outwards through your actions or through your words. What's going to happen to the relationship? You see this? It's going to fall apart. Isn't that interesting? You love them and you're keeping it intellectually in your mind, but it never comes out. And what happens? It breaks down. In that same manner, you can know all that is here is one and the presence of Ishvara, or you can even say that All this is Brahman. Unless that knowledge comes through your physical expression, which is called yajna, we will talk about next week, it's not real knowledge. Real knowledge, real understanding finds a way to express through physical gestures, through physical ways, through physical means, which you will see next week how he does that. When does moral accountability begin?
At the point of choice.
Good. And after what choices, how many choices have you made and what are they? From which?
The choices are do the same thing, do nothing, or do something different.
Okay, from which accountability begins, which leads to what?
Punyapapam.
Punyapapam, right. And what tells you whether your choices were keeping with what needs to be done?
The world's response.
The world's response. Super. What is niyatam karma?
That which has to be done for survival.
Done. How many of them are there?
Three types.
What are they?
Niyatam karma, swadharma, and self-growth.
And self-growth.
Survival, swadharma, and self-growth. Yeah.
Excellent. Lovely. And what happens if you avoid action? If you don't do anything?
It leads to inaction.
It leads to inaction. What else happens if no action?
No results.
No results. Okay. And what do you want? You want
accomplishments.
You want accomplishments, results. And it's okay. You don't have to philosophize. A wise person is free of these results and all this. Awareness has no doership, agentship, but there's still a person who is by his or her nature going to do things. And that's okay. Purnamadav, Purnamidam, Purnat, Purnamudachyate, Purnasya, Purnamadaya, Purnam eva avashishyate. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti.